We're just gonna go straight into the point. When you're brainstorming your essay, be it your personal statement, your writing supplement, your why essay, the first thing that you need to do before even looking at the prompt is to identify characteristics of yourself that you think are important to convey to the admissions counselor or the school that you're applying to. There are a couple of ways you can do this. The first way is by going online and just looking at some personality trait quizzes. Do not take the result of these quizzes, but rather look at the different answers. And instead of taking it in a fast-paced, quiz-like manner, what I want you guys to do is to write down characteristics of yourself that have been revealed by your answers to these quizzes. For example, if it says, are you more of like a considerate person? Do you consider generals or particulars when you answer a question? Is your worldview more optimistic or pessimistic or realistic? I want you to take a pen and paper and just write down all of these little characteristics about yourself. So as for myself, my list would look like curious, inquisitive, very straightforward, to the point, understanding, good listener, but yet also a good leader. Then you can go even deeper on and list out some other things that you think are kind of cool about these personality traits in particular. For example, in response to curious, I can write down interested in this area. Curious in terms of like looking at new essays, evaluating everything I read, be it an article or a news channel or a TED Talk that you watch on YouTube, stuff like that. So start small. And now after you have completed and you have a list of traits that you want to portray about yourself, now it's the time to select a couple. Say you pick inquisitive and resilient. What you need is either one, an event to show that you're extremely resilient or resilient in a specific way, or two, some sort of description of that characteristic in a bit more detail. In response to inquisitive or curious, I would recall a couple of events that happened over the course of my life. I could write when I was 8 years old and I had a Chinese calligraphy teacher who was like considered a master, one of the most credible sources on Chinese calligraphy in China. Yet little 8-year-old me decided to go into a debate about the essence of logic and reasoning versus stylistic debate against this like 75-year-old master. That part of myself, I feel, not only shows how inquisitive I am, but also a little bit about how straightforward or how like forward charging that was. And then I can think of another event. For example, when I was 15, 16 years old and I went to this summer camp in Chicago called GYALS, and in the face of this South Africa Consulate General, I decided to launch into a very detailed Q&A about Nelson Mandela and his actual impact on South Africa and not just globally. This kind of characteristic small events that build up over time could be something interesting you would want to write your essay about. However, don't immediately jump into the essay drafting step. We're not there yet. The next thing that you need to do after you've amassed a list of characteristics as well a list of events that are associated with these characteristics is now picking a few that you like. What characteristics would you read in a stranger's essay that would immediately make you like this person? Maybe it's not being super hardworking or super high achieving or like super, like straight to the point. That may not be as attractive and that may not be as empathetic. So what you want to cultivate is the profile of a person that is most similar to yourself, but in a way that strangers can look at this and immediately relate to this person. There's always an element of relatability in essays. The best essays that I've seen written are always strangely interesting, very captivating, but also somehow I can relate to them, or at least I can see where they're coming from. And so that's the next thing that we need to do, is to funnel out a list of characteristics and maybe start to structure the events in a way that tells a holistic story of a person. Now let's move on to the next step, which is how do you narrow down specific ideas, events that kind of captivate you? I always try to err on the side of caution and don't talk about your achievements. I've mentioned this in my videos on this channel many times. I don't like it when people go on and talk about their achievements or their like biggest thing or something they've been doing for like tens and tens of years if it doesn't show anything about their personality. Just because you made like a fundraiser that had a couple $1,000s or you started this like initiative with X and X followers doesn't really say anything about yourself, right? So instead of talking about something like that in terms of its results, speak instead about where it came from. Why'd you start that? And identify that to a characteristic and start from there. So the next step after you've selected the structure of what your essay will be about, now it's on to how you write the actual essay. Now this part's a little bit difficult because everyone has their own writing style. So I have 2 steps for you to do this very effectively and in a time friendly way. The first one is to go look at your past pieces of writing. Maybe not in terms of like your literary essays or like your expository research papers for class, but look at your diary, maybe some creative short stories that you've written, or try to write a creative short story that's entirely not related to college apps and see what tone, what kind of sentences you like to use, how you like to convey to the point. Do you like to start out right at the beginning? Do you like to lead into it? What kind of techniques do you already think in and will write in? Because these are important for you to identify. But say you don't do any of that, right? Say you don't like writing or creative writing, any of that. Then what can you do? Well, the next step is going to be a lot easier and maybe a bit more difficult, but I'm currently working on a very exciting project that will hopefully change this situation. But as of right now, it's decently difficult to find essays online that are suitable to your background or your demographic. In this scenario, we'll have to make do with what we have, right? It's not ideal, it's not great, but at least reading some cool essays is better than not having any essays at all. So I would recommend like 50 successful Harvard applications essay. I will link the PDF down below, it's free, and go ahead and just look at it. Pick out a couple of essays that you really like. Maybe not ones that are most like you, but just essays that you read and you remember and you like. For me, I read almost all of the essays in this book and I identified maybe like 3 or 4 that I really liked. First, I looked at that and then I tried to write about something random. Like I described an apple, I described the scenery outside my door. Start by describing something small and imitate the way that person has been writing. And once you do that, you start to get a sense of what writing styles, what writing sequences you are more compatible with. And then the final step is to start drafting. In the drafting step, it's very tedious, it's very painful. The only really advice I have for you is don't click the delete button. Just keep writing. Whenever I tutor or try to help college students draft their essays and come up with ideas and edit their essays, the number one problem I see is that they're very insecure about what they write. And that's true for anyone. I'm very insecure about what I write all the time. But what you need to understand is that it's much easier to turn a 2,000 word essay or 2,000 word just block of mumbo jumbo text into a polished 600 word essay than to take 2 or 3 sentences that are very polished and turn that into a 600 word essay. So always start writing more and then think about how you want to tame that in, cut it, make it more concise later. And repeat this process. If you finish an essay that you feel like doesn't really represent yourself, loop back to step 1 and watch this video again. If this was helpful, please go ahead and recommend this to your friends. I will be posting college, specifically essay-related content on my channel a lot more often now because we are heading into August, which is near to September, which is near to October, which is early decision/early application time period. I'm very excited for the college apps, but I know that you are probably terrified because I was terrified. So I'm just here to tell you that what will be, and there's not really anything that we can do about that process except give it your best. Present yourself as well as you can on a piece of paper, cross your fingers, and good luck to everyone. I'll see you guys next week in another video. Bye!